The item on the agenda now is the Budget and Audit Committee matters with Treasurer Dan Clark and Chief Financial Officer Jorge Perez. And I assume since you haven't moved, you guys would prefer to stand right there, correct? Fantastic. Please take it away.
Already? Oh, thank you so much, Rajiv. I will try to do my best to struggle through this with my my speech. I do have good days, and today is not one of them per se. But I will do my best, and if not, I will go with him. And yeah, okay. So the first one is a really routine thing that we have to do because I'm new here now. And so per our, okay, that's on page 60 of our stuff. And we met with that as a committee, and it's great. So is there, I mean, I will so move myself, okay, for this.
I have no objection to that.
Okay.
Here, a second for, and just to be clear, this is a resolution authorizing our banking relationships and to order me to sign it.
Second.
I have second from Governor Stevens. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any member comment? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Seems like a unanimous decision. Thank you, Treasurer Clark. The floor is yours again.
Okay, the next one is to set the fee for 2021. And we normally would have done this prior, but it unfortunately fell through. Okay, for last year, you know, we should have done it last year, but we didn't, so we are now. We historically do 3 years in a row at once, but because of the structure issues for the bar, we felt doing 1 year now made sense, and then we'll do 2022 and 2023 this summer. The budget, we met last month, and it was a really close vote amongst our group. But 4-3, the recommendation is to roll the same fees from last year. And so that is the official recommendation for the group. So with that said, in my own personal take, I felt as treasurer and as sitting here for the entity, I disagree with that from the standpoint of the LT license type. From FY 2013 to date, we've spent over 1.3 million, and I included in the bog book the 2012 order that the program is intended to be to not have to be underwritten. And so the current fee, in my mind, is not high enough. I understand there's not enough of them right now to be able to break costs. I mean, you know, okay, for cost, but just for historical standpoint, in 2018, this bog voted to raise the fee. Now that was turned down because we moved to go from 175 to 453. And so the court found that jump to be way not fair and not allowed. So my own view is that for FY21, I would like to see us raise it to 229, and that would be half of the amount of what an active one pays. And I think that amount of jump is a fair jump, it's a reasonable jump, And for FY 2018, FY 2019, and FY 20, their fee has been flat. So that's my own, my own take on that. So.
Let's see, we'll have discussion on this matter for our first round of discussion, because the big item, the
Just a
budget,
point
we'll
of
make
order.
sure every governor gets at least a chance to speak. We'll limit everyone on this first go-around to 3 minutes.
Just a point of order.
Yes, Governor
Yeah.
Stevens.
So I'm just curious, and I just want to understand your process. So ordinarily, I believe, and I'm looking over at Governor Higginson, to get this going, there would actually be a motion for the main part, which would be what was reported out of committee, and then we would take it up. But then what would be in order would be a motion to amend that would likely be made by Governor Clark. So I just want, but what I want to know is, do you want and do you need a motion on the floor first, and how do you want to proceed with this?
I'm happy to let people just talk, but, it might, in the area of efficiency, what you're suggesting sounds like it might be more efficient. I'd be happy to entertain a motion. I see Governor Russell's hand up first. I'm sorry, Knight's hand up first.
Thank you, President Rajiv. I move to approve Treasurer Clark's recommendation that the license fee for lawyers remain the same, and that the license fee for triple LTs be increased by a small proportionate amount to, was it $229?
Yes.
$229.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Governor Knight. We have a second by Governor Peterson. And now I will move my head this direction and start. Oh, yes, Governor?
I have some discussion, or rather clarification.
Yes, I will go in a circle.
Do I have to wait till you come around the room?
Sounds like it.
Are you going to put Kyle ahead of me?
I am. Governor Schicchetti. Okay. Governor McBride.
So I was one of the four who voted. I'm like, can everybody hear me now? Yeah, you're going to regret that. I was one of the four who voted not to reduce active member fees, and my reasoning there was we adopted a budget that spends into reserves, and so I wasn't going to vote to reduce revenue. That said, I would support increasing the fees on the LLTs. It seems reasonable. It's also, I guess, similar to the other side of what I said. I wouldn't vote to reduce revenues when we're spending into a deficit. I will vote to increase revenues. So that's my recommendation.
Governor Angeville.
I just want to say in general about the LLT program, it really, if I could be blunt, seems to be a bit of a bust. I don't think that it's serving the underserved as it was intended to do, and it's running at a deficit. I mean, I would support raising the fees, but I hope that at some point, and I know we've tried to do this before as a board, address the issue of the LLT program. I hope that at some point we're going to be able to really re-examine it and bring it before the powers that be.
Governor Stevens.
Funny you should say that. Actually, I'm not sure it was so much a part of his report, but I can assure you that yesterday at Budget and Audit, we spent a goodly amount of time on the subject, and that I can assure you this is going to be coming back in front of us, not in terms of the fee, but actually just what to do regarding it altogether. My memory doesn't serve me well, because I'm not sure that your proposal, I'm looking at Governor Clark at this time, came up in budget. It may have, and I forgot. But that being said, because sometimes you have a second thought about things, I will support this because I do think that I don't know that $29 is going to break anybody's back, and it's certainly not in alignment with the previous action, which was to equalize the fee for an active attorney and a fee for a triple LT. I think this is a modest increase, and and I understand it, and I can support it.
Governor Kang, Governor Tollefson, Governor Grabicki.
Yeah, I am. Don't poke the bear. This is a negligible increase in terms of our overall revenue. It's going to net us less than $1,500. Those on the Supreme Court who still enthusiastically support the Triple LT program, given how the court reacted last time, may take this as an affront. I think we are potentially burning political capital when we don't have to. We're going to have some difficult discussions, I think, regarding Triple LT over the next 12 months, some with the court, and I don't think this is the proper predicate to those discussions.
Governor Bell.
Thank you. A question, actually two questions, and then maybe an observation. I think the question would be directed probably to the interim executive director and maybe to you, Rajiv. My question would be, to your knowledge, has this organization ever reduced its licensing fees absent a member referendum?
I'm going to look to Jean and Doug as our historians and see if they can recall.
I'm certainly unaware of it. I'm not on budget and audit committee. I was not there present for the discussions, but I think this is a really interesting conversation for this organization to be having at this time. My instinct would be to support some sort of a modest reduction in licensing fees, but I need to acknowledge that I don't know what the impact on the overall budget would be. And so I would be curious if somebody who served on the committee, perhaps our treasurer or somebody, could describe for us briefly what the overall impact would be on our budget with, say, a $3 decrease of attorney licensing fees.
Well,
so that was discussed last month. There are approximately 32,000 active ones. So whatever amount we ultimately, may do would be, that amount times. Yeah. So
but what does that mean for purposes of our operations?
Yeah, and we are, to be candid, that is still potentially something we are talking about doing. We're exploring that, but for 21, we needed to have something before you, and the committee felt we should do the deep dive audit, which we are right now. Okay, we're starting, and we should do the FY20 reforecast, and so it was felt until those are done, we shouldn't make a move for FY21 now, and then if we had to go back and we're over, you know what I mean. So we're going to wait now. That was our thoughts.
Okay. So. Thank you.
Governor Peterson? Governor Higginson?
I'm in support of this motion for the reasons that Governor McBride has outlined. So I urge everyone to vote in favor of this measure.
Governor Hunter?
Yes, thank you, even though I had my hand up first. I am going to support this, but I do just have a little statement. I don't have a problem going on the record saying that it's been my feeling all along, and it still is, that if the triple LTs want to enjoy the benefits that the bar gives the lawyers, they should be paying the same fee. So any increase in their fee is supported by me. On the other side, until we get going with the member engagement committee, I would not support any increase in the regular member fees. So I'm just going on the record saying that. Thank you.
I'd like to say that, this is a very modest amount. I really think it is more symbolic than anything else. It does highlight a concern that many of us around the table have about this, what you might think of as an unfunded mandate that the members have had to been forced to pay to date now $2 million to fund this program, which was supposed to be self-sustaining at all times, if I'm not mistaken. But I think, as Governor Stevens has pointed out, we're going to take a longer look at that and hopefully have a dialogue with the court about that because it has, been a point of contention with our members, and it has not had the impact for the public that was anticipated. And one could easily imagine spending $2 million in a manner that would have had a much greater impact for the benefit of the public in the form of access to justice concerns. And I'm now maybe repeating a little bit what Governor Clark said, but there are many of us around the table who are working with the staff on budget and audit and otherwise to look at ways to reduce costs and to pass on those savings to members. We don't want to do anything hasty. We don't want to put the budget in jeopardy. We don't want to look like we're being rash. But for many of us, reducing bar dues, fees, at some point not too far down the road is a priority.
Nothing further.
Governor Clark.
I believe we need to I would like to make I totally agree with what your motion is, except we left out the LPOs being their fee being the same. So I would like to
Make
offer
a
that
friendly
as
amendment.
Yes.
Accepted.
Yeah.
And just to clarify for everyone, I'm gonna articulate what I think that was being expressed, which is that we're setting the fee of all limited licensed practitioners, LPOs and triple LTs. No.
Only the LT one would go up, not the LPO one.
Okay. I think that was. Did that need clarification? I think that was the motion. That was the motion as I understood it. But anyways, is that if anyone disagrees or is everyone? Governor Grabicki.
Just for clarification, how much are the LPOs paying next year?
Right now, they pay $200.
So we're making a distinction or a discrimination between the LPOs and the triple LTs.
No, we aren't, because GR 25 says that the limited license is okay to be self-sufficient. Right now, the LPOs are, but the LL ones are not. So that would be why I would think it's reasonable to raise. I'd like to respond to what you had said earlier about the capital, or about it is our board's job to set fees. And what I try to do is look at the fee, look at the issue, and see what the amount of, we certainly can't say they're going to pay $400, right, in 1 year's jump. That would not be fair. So what I personally believe we should do going forward is look at their fee, see what their see each year what their cost center is as far as what they do for the year, and look at that, and maybe going forward we need to raise it each year a small amount, because the problem that in part has been is from FY 2015 to 18 it was at one rate, and then from 18 to to now it's been up another rate, a small amount. So yeah, that's my thoughts with
that. Chief Regulatory Counsel McElroy.
Thank you. I'm not going to take a position on the fee staying the same for lawyers, going up for triple LTs, and I assume you're also including the reduction in the CPF in the same motion. Is that correct? What I do want to comment on is the process. I don't think that the triple LT board has been consulted in any way about a possible license fee increase. I don't think they were notified that this was on the agenda. They may or may not object. I don't know. I can't express an opinion because they've never been asked. And it just seems like that's not a great process. I don't think you have to set their license fee today. I agree that you better set the lawyer license fee quickly because that is likely to generate enough signatures if a referendum were to be taken. But I don't think that same issue exists with triple LTs, and that would give you time to consult with the board and engage in a process of communication with that board that I think has not occurred to date.
If I may, while we're on the subject of communication with the triple LT board, I would be remiss to this bog if I didn't point out that until apparently a few months ago, they were never told by the WSBA that this 2012 order existed or there was a requirement for them to be self-sufficient. And that's outrageous to me. That FY 2013 to almost recently, over $1 million has been spent, and supposedly they had no idea that they're supposed to be compliant with GR 25 or the order. So this bog sets the fees, and why certainly because of the time frame, we didn't contact them. That is correct. But certainly, we sent out an email to all people, so they certainly received that.
Thank you. No, we don't have to go around the room. We're going to go at this phase.
But I was first.
At this phase in the game, I was going to say I'll see whose eye I was caught first. But if it's Governor Stevens alleging correctly that he was first, I'll first go to Governor Stevens, then I'll go to Governor Hunter, and I'll go to Governor Higginson. But I just had a point of information I wanted to make first. Treasurer Clark, didn't you send a letter to the Triple LT board chair inviting him to the Budget and Audit Committee meeting?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. Governor Stevens. Governor Hunter.
Thank you, Governor Stevens. Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but I seem to recall, I think what Jean said is very important, that notification I think is significant. But I seem to recall a couple of years ago, and like I say, if I'm wrong about this, I apologize, that the fees were substantially increased for the membership without their notification. In fact, it's my understanding that a referendum was generated, signed, and was set to be circulated, and in some sort of mysterious manner, that referendum was circumvented, and the order for the increase in members' fees was submitted to the court and signed, and the fees went way up. So either we change this policy and we send something out to all the members that says effective, January 1st, 2021 or whatever, we're going to increase your fees to X, or we invite them to the public meetings, because I don't think it's right to compare what happened to the members to what is going on with the triple LTs. I was at the meeting where it was moved and voted on and approved that the triple LTs would pay the same rate as the lawyers, because they are enjoying the exact same benefits as the lawyers. that was cut down in a big hurry. So my feeling is that any kind of increase at all on anybody's fees needs to be communicated to. And if you're making an issue that the triple LTs weren't notified about this, then let's go back a couple of years when not only was the membership not notified about the increase, they were blindsided by it. So I don't want to see that kind of a thing repeated again. So I'm just saying that for the membership, and however anybody wants to take it, I just need to say it.
Governor Higginson, Governor Stevens, would you remind me of a point of privilege to rearrange my organization a little bit? I meant after all the governors got a chance to speak, to take member comment at that time, and so they wouldn't be intermixed with the governor discussion with full consideration of the member comment. So I'm going to take a little member comment. Jim McPherson, did you have some comments to make?
In fact, I have a lot of comments now, but
Thank you for being here, Mr. McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure exactly where to begin. More has come into my mind in hearing these last couple of comments, but I'll say my first ones first, and then I'll deal with a few things that I've just heard. The BOG is in the position now of dealing with dues, which has always been a hot button issue for a long time. Now you are now being challenged by three different places, from your own members, from the Supreme Court, and even potentially from the state legislature. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned at all, I just want to put an overall, my main purpose for standing up here is that who is responsible for justice in the state of Washington? Are lawyers the ones that are going to be responsible to pay for justice in the state of Washington? In my 40 years of the experience as an attorney, that's never been I understand that there is cost involved, but the state is supposed to provide a justice system. The lawyers are not supposed to provide a justice system. And we just heard today about an example where several $1 million of fees that have been acquired through fines, in fact, have been absorbed by the legislature and used for other purposes. And I just want you to keep in mind the fact that we're talking about hundreds of dollars to lawyers here, but in effect, what they're saying is that we are responsible for the change for justice. As far as the Supreme Court, what happened in that last time we tried to have a referendum, we got a letter, a one-page letter from, Steve and I were just talking about it 20 minutes ago, from the Supreme Court that said, hey, you guys can't, we're not going to allow you to raise your rates or reduce your rates. We're not going to listen to you. We're just going to let this go through. You remember when that happened? About 2-3 years ago. So that's an example of where we're getting hit from all different sides. So I am going to say that I do agree with all the comments that have been made about this current motion. It makes sense. Dan has done a great job. I think that politically it's the right thing to do. Keep it the way it is. I think the triple LTs need to be tweaked a little bit to show them that they're not standing up to the 2012 letter that they got. And they knew about that, Dan. And if they say on the board that they weren't aware of the fact that it's supposed to be self-sustaining, Steve Crossland certainly did. I mean, he's been there from the beginning. And many of the people that are on there realize that they're supposed to be self-sustaining, and they're not. And of course, anybody that knows me knows that my organization and me personally have been against the triple LTs from the very beginning. That's a whole nother topic. But since you're talking about budget and audit here, I think that the overreaching comment, again, is who is responsible for justice, and how do you guys balance all of these slings and arrows that are coming at you from all sides? One of the ways is through communication, and I'll leave you with this. I heard that maybe our members weren't aware about all this. You know, we've been getting these cute little emails much more regularly from the bar. I really appreciate this. I just was looking at one from a couple days ago, and about this meeting. And it said, we're going to talk about dues. We're going to talk about dues increases. In fact, I think it had some click-throughs on that. Who's here? I'm here. Jean's here. People that care are here. We are communicating. We're doing a much better job this year in the last 2 years than we ever did for decades in informing our members. There's only so much you can do. It's your job as board members to do what's right. And I'm sure you will do the right thing because you're all good people.
And on that note, I would like to take a moment to thank Director Nagowski and her team for the transformational effort on our communication efforts. Thank you. Any other member comment? Thank you. All right, Governor Higginson.
I think in light of Governor Hunter's and Jim McPherson's comments, I have nothing to add, but thank you.
Governor Stevens.
So I guess mine are questions before I make a proposal. And my question is, and I guess because I heard it from Chief Regulatory Counsel, but I want to hear from Interim Executive Director and General Counsel, and that is the question about if we held off taking the action regarding the limited practice officers or even just the LLT, what does that do in terms of this time frame? Because if the real issue is making sure we covered it for the active attorney members, and we can take that action. But I kind of want to know what the options are. Is it in fact an option possibly to hold the other issue in abeyance?
Thank you. Well, if Jean says it's an option, then it is. And I'll let her speak. But I do believe that the primary, we have a very long timeline that we work with on license fees out of an abundance of caution to allow for the right of referendum to be exercised and for all of those deadlines to run. So ideally, we would act on the attorney license fee today, and I will let Jean jump in, but it sounds like it might be a different matter for the other two license types. Or Julie.
So the basis for my comment was simply a numbers consideration. There are enough lawyers to get enough signatures to have a referendum that has to be put to a vote. There are not enough LLTs and LPOs to get enough signatures to get a referendum to put a matter to a vote. And so for that reason, I do think it's extremely important to set the lawyer license fees today, and I do think that this board could take the time to consult with the LLT board and the LP board, if you want to, about the license fees for the limited licenses. And that's simply, I just don't think there's that same time pressure.
Then, Mr. President, then I'm going to make a motion that we take action on the fees for active attorneys and postpone action. Actually take action on fees for active attorneys and LPOs and postpone action on the LLT fee until our next meeting in January.
Point of order.
Thank you.
We have a pending motion and a second. I think if Alec wants to do this, he's got to offer an amendment to the amendment.
No, actually, this is actually tabling a part of this action, which is on the table right now.
Russell thinks I'm right.
So? Okay, then I make a motion to sever.
Well, maybe I can facilitate a little. Maybe it would be taken as a friendly amendment. I don't know.
Well, can I speak? Well, can I speak to why I'm
Yes,
suggesting this? And I come back then to my good friend Governor Grabicki, whose comment was, "Don't poke the bear." And sometimes I want to make sure that what we're doing is not actually opening ourselves up to a weaker position. So regardless of what happened before, because I don't think two wrongs make a right. Like I said, I don't remember this proposal regarding the LLTs being taken up in budget and audit. I think it was an afterthought. I may be wrong, but I don't recall that. I recalled just we're going to keep it all flat. Given that, what would have been in the materials, I think, but also I think it's important to have notice. And so what I don't want to do is serve up kind of an easy pushback by the LLT saying we had no information that this was coming, and rest on that, as opposed to giving them the information so that they can be prepared to speak to it. And so I would rather that happen, especially if it does not harm us in terms of making sure that, the huge number of attorneys who could have a referendum happen. And I would just like to do that because like I said, I just think that the easy pushback is going to be, what we understood was you're keeping them all the same for this next time. And then at this meeting, we kind of decided something else.
Governor Clark.
Well, just for your comments on the audit meeting, that was discussed last month, and that was in the other written.
But we didn't vote it out as a committee.
Yes. Last month, and you okay. So 4-3, you said don't do it.
I supported vote 4-3 for keeping the levels
fees the
as
same,
they
yes.
are.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't recall a second action being put on the table at all regarding the modest increase, and I agree it's a modest increase to the LLTs.
And that's because our board there voted 4-3 to roll all values. So that was on for discussion. It was in our written stuff. Just for that matter. I mean, this is an issue I feel strongly about. If the BOG wants to wait, and we can, I'm certainly open to that myself. Like you're saying, I mean, we certainly can hear from the board, but ultimately we make the vote. So even if you say don't do it, it's still up to us to set the the amount. So.
So I have my motion to sever.
Yes, so there's a motion to sever on the table. Do you mind if can we have some more discussion on it?
Well, I
Or
guess,
I'll take
is there a second?
Is there a second?
Or no?
All right. Is there a second then?
Technically, it's called division of a question, so I apologize. I called it to sever, but it's the same thing.
There's a motion to divide the question on the table, just the two fees. Is there a second? No second. The motion to sever fails for lack of a second.
Okay.
Is there any more debate on the original question? Governor Swagel.
Well, I just have a question. Not at yesterday's Budget and Audit Committee meeting, but I think the prior one, there was discussion of, well, we don't want to move hastily in reducing the general fees, but it seemed as though there might be a surplus in the client protection fund, and
That's
that
the next matter.
Okay, so we will take that up
We will
separately,
take up that question on the
which is effectively a fee reduction for the members potentially. Okay, thanks. Thank you, PJ.
Is there any? Okay, Governor Knight.
I think the comments about providing notice are well taken, and it's obviously extremely important that the members, lawyer members and LLT members, know what we're going to be voting on. This topic was on the agenda. The motion is to approve the written recommendation of our treasurer that appears at page 62 of the materials. So the public and LLT members and lawyer members did have notice of this being discussed today. And I think with that notice in mind, I think it is appropriate to vote on what is on the agenda. And I think they've been provided adequate notice.
Are you calling the question?
Thank you for saying that more eloquently, and I call the question.
Is there a second? All in favor of voting on the question? Not on your position on the question, but just that we will vote on the question. Ending debate.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Governor Schetti, is that you? Okay, one vote against. The motion passes. We'll now move to vote on the substance. I'm going to restate the motion just so everyone's clear. To adopt the recommendation of the Budget and Audit Committee in regards to license fees, except to increase the triple LT fee to $229. Is that accurate? Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. One against. Thank you. The motion passes. We'll move to the next item. Oh, thank you. Governor, any abstentions? Governor Stevens. Would you like it noted? Governor Stevens is like that. Oh, okay. Thank you. We'll move on to the next budget and audit item.
Okay, as part of when we talked last month about the license fee, we did we did talk about the desire of wanting, if we could, to give back to our and we looked at this fee here, and I went through it, and so and then we did, us both, and that's all in our stuff, and it's found that we can lower it, and even given a year we had this last year for FY19, we still made money. In fact, we made $580,000 after all things done. So we have a very large amount in reserves of around. It's right around $4 million. So the thought is we lower it to we'll still be solvent for the fund.
Governor Schetti.
So is my understanding is that is an effective reduction for members' fees?
Yes, and that would be for all of them, not just one type of one, but
So
all.
That would include the triple LTs
Yes.
and the LPF?
Yes.
Thank you.
Past President Pickett. Governor McBride.
I believe, as with before, we ought to have a motion on the table.
Oh,
And-
yes. Thank you. Thank you.
So-
Maybe since I'm about to get to Governor Angeville, she'll make the motion or not. Oh, thank you, Governor McBride. We now have a proper motion, and we have a second from Governor Grabicki, and now I'll get to Governor Angeville.
I'm being a bit obtuse about what is before us right now in terms of the reduction.
So currently, the client protection fee is set at $35 per $30 per member, and we've been generating a surplus for the last couple of years, such that the fund is growing more than the gifts that go out. And Governor Clark and the Budget and Audit Committee have recommended a $5 reduction, which will still more than meet the average gifts going out and allow the fund to continue to grow. Is that correct?
Okay. And so that reduction would occur for the LLTs and the LPOs as well?
All members.
Okay, thanks.
Governor Stevens. Governor Kang. Governor Tollefson. Governor Grabicki. Governor Abell.
Just a brief comment. First of all, thank you to our treasurer and the members of the Budget and Audit Committee of doing the hard work on this. I think this makes a lot of sense. I think this is good news for the organization. I think it's interesting that it appears, based on what I'm seeing in the written materials, what I'm hearing in the room thus far, that there's some consensus on a reduction with regard to this particular line item. And yet there was not consensus with regard to the overall licensing fee issue. And what I would say as a matter of organizational dynamics is that if there ever was interest in reducing the overall attorney licensing fees, that issue will not get easier with time. That's not the way organizations work. If there's interest in reducing the member licensing fees, that decision will not be easier in 2021 or 2022 or whatever it might be. So if this is an easy way to reduce $5 off everybody's bill, then well done to all of you. Again, I think this is good, hard work, and I think this will be good for the organization. But I throw out that additional observation that if there ever was interest, this won't get easier in the future.
Governor Peterson. Governor Peterson. Oh, thank you. Governor Higginson.
I would just echo Governor Bell's comments. I actually had hoped at this meeting that we might have a discussion about reducing member fees entirely, especially considering that at our last meeting we were told that our reserves were a couple $1 million higher than they needed to be under our policies, and that would be an appropriate place to actually start giving back to the members by reducing their fees. We haven't gone there. I did support the prior motion, but I simply would like to say for anybody who is listening that this reduction of $5 for the Client Protection Fund assessment is a good start, but it's not nearly enough in terms of what we ought to be doing for our members. They should pay less.
Governor Hunter.
Ditto.
Governor Swagel.
Yes, I think this is a good idea. I support the reduction of fees for members, and I think this is a good start because we found a surplus that we can tap into. It shows that we are aligned in moving in this direction, but at the same time, we're taking a little bit more cautious approach to make sure we don't tip over the budget.
Governor Knight.
No comment.
Member comments. Yes. I see the hand of Jim McPherson.
I agree with all the comments. I think it's a great reduction. In looking at the chart, those that have followed the Client Protection Fund over the years know that it seems like every so often we just have a really big hit, and that's because we have some crazy guy that does something that affects a whole lot of people. And so we have $4 million, and I think that's great. I'm wondering whether the people who are running the Client Protection Fund are doing an analysis of I think there's ceilings, and then they have to go above the ceiling, because I remember when I defended a person that was disbarred and the Client Protection Fund paid $120,000 or something like that. Is this an ongoing, I guess it's a question to the bar, is the Client Protection Fund turning away a lot of people because of the deadline or the limits? Because as I recall, I think there were limits, and maybe Julie can help us with that or somebody else. But we're in good shape now, and I agree with all the other comments about the reduction of $5. But I think it's something we should look at every so often, because remember that guy that went to Mexico? Remember that one? It was about 10, 15 years ago, and it was a huge amount of money, and that's one of the reasons why we raised it to $30, I think, back then.
Thank you for that historical perspective as well. Any other member comment? Thank you. Well, let's go to my left and right hand. We'll start with our general counsel and move to our executive director.
So actually the per gift limit has been raised, but also there is a new, I guess, process since the time you were talking about, where when the fund makes a gift, after it's approved by the board, the person receives $5,000 regardless of the size of the gift, assuming the gift is more than that. And then at the end of the year, all of the rest of the gifts that are to be paid out are looked at in total, and if there's a need to prorate, then that occurs. And so that is also a protection that the fund has. So I'm not in a position to speak on that, but what I think is true without looking at the numbers is that there has not been any proration in the last several years.
Director Nevitt.
I just wanted to give some information and add to the discussion in response to Governor Abell and Governor Higginson about a little bit of the difference between why you're seeing support coming out of Budget and Audit Committee for this particular reduction, but not for an overall member fee reduction. I think this is a separate fund from the rest of our funds. There's not a lot of inputs and outputs, so it was very simple to analyze. And also, we've been tracking the surplus for several years. So this is an idea that's sort of been growing for a few years, and I think we were able to make this move with great confidence that it would not have a negative impact on the goal of the fund. With respect to the license fee, as I mentioned earlier, our costs go up every year. Rent goes up, health insurance goes up, salaries go up, and so even when we don't raise the license fee, we just keep it the same. We're already putting ourselves in a situation where we have to be looking at things, and so I think we have heard loud and clear that there's a desire to reduce the license fee, and I think that as we go through the budget reforecast, we are looking to put the organization in a position where we may be able to do that. But I do think that the board will have to think about, once we get to a place that with the license fee that the board feels good about, we do have to recognize that costs go up every year. And so it would not be sustainable for the license fee to remain the same or to go down consistently unless we were also willing to cut back on services every year.
Thank you, Director. Director Niels.
Just to echo a little bit of what Tara said, part of the other thing that we're doing with the reforecast is to try and get a sense of how the budgeting portion of this is something where we can make intelligent decisions about things based on where the fee is. I think what we've been saying is this is a bottoms-up approach now, so we're going to take a look at things from the perspective of how each particular thing is in relation to what the fee is to see where the match is, which is an informed decision about exactly how we're going to go about trying to make a decision about where the fee could be. And then the decision, of course, if there is some compelling reason to reduce it, then the question is what programs and other things might we have to consider not doing? Should we have a fee that precludes us from acting on some of the things that we're doing?
Oh, Governor Stevens.
So I'm also, and I'm looking at Governor Clark and at Chief Financial Officer Perez, but it's my understanding that at least the work on budget and audit, I mean, we will actually be looking at the question of reducing fees and what the impacts are with the next budget cycle. But there's also the repurposing and looking at the budget now. The worst thing you could do, from my perspective, is to just take a meat-ax and then deal with all the unintended consequences of that. The second worst thing you could do, in a way, is do this reduction, then realize that you're in a hole, and so you begin to ramp up again almost to where you are at a quicker rate to get out of the hole. I mean, I would hope that if we did the reduction, it would be the kind of reduction, understanding that costs go up, but that you would actually have that somewhat sustainable over time, so it doesn't kind of look like a cosmetic shell game where we giveth 1 year and then we taketh away before the next 2 years are done.
I appreciate those comments, Governor Stevens, but I am noticing that we're really not on the topic of debate, and I'm going to restrict further comments to the topic at hand. Governor Clark.
Okay, I will. Okay, so call the. For a vote then.
There's a motion to call the question or end debate, however you like the terminology of it. Is there a second?
Second.
Many seconds. And so we go. All in favor of the motion to recommend to the Supreme Court that they lower the client protection fee assessment by $5?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. We are running a little bit about on time, so I'm going to rush us along.
Now you got to vote on the motion.
Did I not do that?
That was just calling.
Well, heavens. Okay. Now, the question itself, of which I just articulated and thought I was calling the vote on. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Now the motion is passed. Then we'll move on to the next item. I was just starting to narrate to you that I were falling a little bit behind my internal time schedule, and the next matter that Treasurer Clark will bring is a budget request increase regarding our contract lobbyists.
And if I may, the next two, we really can, I think, do fast. We all agreed that the next two were really great ideas on audit. The first would be to amend the FY20 budget, by 5,000. And then the next would be by 10 for for those items.
Move we approve the requested increases of $5,000 and $10,000.
Motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Governor Hunter, I think, and Governor Schicchetti. Past President Pickett? Any comments? Governor McBride? Governor Angelville?
No.
Governor Stevens? Governor Kane? Governor Tollefson? Governor Abell?
What is the purpose of the additional $5,000 for the contract lobbyist?
Our line item right now is for 5,000 for the year, and so we thought that was pretty low. So so that'll make it 10,000.
Take this guy.
But is it to lobby on a particular issue or on all issues
It's
related to the bar?
it's for all, but it's to have that. I mean, so we could have one.
To respond to the question, I'll recognize Governor Schicchetti, the head of the
Thank
BOG
you, yeah.
Legislative Committee.
That's right. Just to be brief, traditionally we do have a lobbyist that handles a lot with regard to the sections, and we certainly want to continue that too. Sorry. So part of that is an extension of the sections and the lobbying efforts that we've done year to year. And part of it is to be responsive to legislation that may affect the Bar Association, not unlike last year.
Okay, so I think that addresses my question. So it sounds like this is at least in part in response to potential legislation involving the structure of this organization. Is that correct?
It would be that, but it would be anything that we think is of importance to the Bar Association.
So maybe you better give an overview of just a very short 30-second elevator speech of all the things the WSBA is involved in lobbying down in Olympia, which is quite a bit. 30 seconds.
Well, maybe that would be a little bit more appropriate when our lobbyist Sanjay is here, and then he could explain a little bit more about what he does. But in a nutshell, it's not just limited issues that we which gather our attention, and like 1788 did last year. It has to do with all the sections that they track in order to keep our sections apprised of legislation that they might be interested in, and bring it to their attention. 1788 is a good example of something that garnered our attention last year. I can't tell you that we're not going to have something completely different than 1788, but we do want to be more responsive, and part of that is an increased budget for our lobbyists to make sure that we're covering all bases.
Governor Peterson?
Yeah, I have a real concern if this is enough money. I mean, I would rather have a proposal on the table for $50,000.
Governor Higginson?
But I can't speak apparently. I agree with Governor Peterson. I think $5,000 for a lobbyist is way below budget. And I wasn't, unfortunately, at the Budget and Audit Committee meeting when the proposal was considered and forwarded to us for recommendation about the $10,000 for strategic training and planning for public outreach. But I'll just have to say that, in my opinion, it's much more important for us right now to have a strong legislative presence than to do anything else. I would prefer to see the entire 15,000 swung towards legislative efforts. And in fact, more would be better.
Governor Hunter?
I'm willing to. I think it helps. I'm willing to allow Ms. Higginson Governor Higginson, a friendly amendment to my motion to increase. Oh, wait a minute. It was Governor Grabicki's. Excuse me. I apologize.
I don't take it, the chair doesn't recognize that motion then. Governor Swagel?
Although I appreciate Governor Hunter's sentiments, I agree that the budget for lobbying is woefully inadequate based on what I saw last year and based on what I've heard anecdotally about our presence in Olympia. One of our missions is to enhance the administration of justice, and I think it's important for us to have a presence in Olympia to be able to have a unified voice on important matters that impact the administration of justice. And I think that proposals that we might anticipate concerning the structure of the Bar Association are right there in that zone, and I would like to see a budget not of 10,000, but I think as has been mentioned, 25 or 50,000.
Governor Knight?
No comment.
Okay, we have gone around the circle once. I'm going to take some member comment at this time. I'll come back then to Governor Cicchetti, and then I believe I saw Governor Stevens' hand. Members, arise. Here we see Gene Cotton.
Okay. Isn't that a new movie or something, or Rise? So I'm going to speak in ignorance a little bit, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm looking at the financials, okay? And it appears to me under legislative, we have a salary expense of 1.1 full-time equivalent employee and $5,000 for contract lobbyists. Are you kidding me? You cannot have an effective lobbying presence with 1.1 FTE to do everything a lobbyist is supposed to do. And that's not just sorting through all the bazillions of bills that get dropped and trying to figure out what goes to what section or other entity, or notifying you, or testifying. That's down shaking hands and pressing the flesh and putting forth your position in meetings and lunches and all the other things they make jokes about in movies and such. You cannot have effective lobbying on this kind of a budget. The total budget for that cost center is $154,000. That's your lobbyist. And I'm sorry, I'll be picky because the triple LTs are my punching bag. They're over $240,000. What have they done for you lately? Where's a day, I can speak to this because I came here, Jim came here, Gail Stone. Proud to know her. She did a heck of a job for our bar. Catherine Leathers. Same thing. And they had staff. And poor Sanjay's being beaten to death. It's not that he's not as effective, he's just being beaten to death. There's legislation down there right now that is killing our clients because we don't have an opportunity to comment on it or get involved in it because it's not being sent to you guys. Because you're being looked at as ineffective, and you meaning me too, WSBA. I agree with Governor Higginson, but I'd probably triple it. And I know we can't just spend, which fits into the rest of the comments. that were starting to go awry when the president redirected everybody. Yeah, there's got to be this deep dive that takes place into the budget before we talk about reducing license fees or not. That deep dive is important because then we're going to find out what stuff's there that we really shouldn't be spending on and what stuff's missing that we really should. Well, folks, I submit to you, this is one of those things we really should.
Nancy Hawkins.
It's interesting to bring up the audit because you all spent $50,000 or authorized that pretty easily. The last several years, I have commented, and others, about the line item budget for the lobbyists being too low. Everybody knew this July about what had happened in Olympia last year, and yet a budget was passed with $5,000 in it for the lobbyist. How did that happen? Why is there a sense of urgency today? Where was it in July? That's when it could have been done effectively. It's the end of November. The session is right in our face. It's going to be a short session. Things are going to happen fast. We don't even know if we can find somebody if you authorize the money to do more for us. But it definitely needs to happen next year, assuming we're still in business and all that. But I wish people would listen more to the comments that happen in the summer when the budget is being considered, because the family law section and others have been raising this as a crisis for several years. So it's great that people are taking it seriously now. Sanjay's arrived. Somebody, I guess, tweeted him to get his ass down here. And let's find out from him if there's even lobbyists available who can be hired for more hours. And then let's really think about next July or June, what kind of legislative program we want to have.
Just as a point of order, because I see Governor, a point of information, I see Governor Schichetti's hand raising. I believe they have lined up people and there are potential contracts, but is that where you're going to go, Governor Schicchetti? In part, please.
Sanjay is here because we have a presentation that is coming up. I don't believe anybody summoned him into the room. While I'm appreciative of the efforts to increase the budget, I'm somewhat troubled because my understanding, and Sanjay can correct me if I'm wrong, and I invite him to come up and talk a little bit about what he does. But my understanding...
Keep going. But
my understanding is that we hire a lobbyist not on an hourly basis. We pay them for what we think the work is going to be. So if it was $17.88 and we wanted them just to address $17.88, we would give them a certain amount of money negotiated. I don't know, and I can't imagine that would be $50,000. That $5,000 may be sufficient. It may be over. I mean, we don't know that $17.88 is ever coming back. It might not. And if we had a budget of $50,000 that we gave to a lobbyist and they didn't have to do anything, would we be comfortable with that?
Okay.
I didn't hear your question.
Thank you, Governor Schicchetti.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I did have some questions even before he comes up.
Perfect.
Okay.
Actually, I'm actually going to just advise everyone right now. I'll probably let Sanjay wait until his 4 o'clock later showing when we discuss actual legislative matters. Down at the time, I don't really know if we need to delve in at this exact moment, but Governor Stevens?
So, actually, Gene Cotton mentioned at least a couple of names that I was aware of. One of the things that I would like to have addressed, and apparently we didn't do it in the budget process this last time for whatever the reasons are, but the questions go like this.
Excuse me, Governor. Governors, we can hear you talking over here. Governor Stevens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
was there a time that we had a dedicated lobbyist? And if there was, what did we pay that person? I'm hearing discussions of, well, let's add 15,000, let's add 50,000, let's have 25,000. I want to make sure we're just not, just because we are spooked, just coming up with, well, put this amount of money in, just to understand what it is we're trying to do. And some of that goes into what's the history been. And, and some of this may go into in future years. So it's sort of for this stopgap measure, what would be the appropriate amount? But then hopefully on our agenda will be for the future, what are we going to do? Understanding that memories get funny. And when memories get funny and things get a little tighter, there's probably a rethought, well, do we really need a dedicated lobbyist? I mean, I've kind of seen, kind of an up and down on that whole effort. So,
thank you, Governor. And I think as a way to get information on this matter, I think Director Niels may have some information on it.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of context because Catherine Leathers was still employed here when I started at the Bar Association. And just to give you some history, at that time we actually had a physical location in Olympia, and we had a person that worked half-time there. She was approximately 0.75 person who was kind of cycled up, ramped up to full-time during the session, and then was kind of brought down to half-time, and was there working very specifically on things. That's kind of what you're referring to. We had a physical space there also that we leased out. Because of some other things, that was just on the other side of what had happened as it relates to the consideration for budget and the license fee. So on the other side of that, we did away with that location and we went to hiring a person that was a lobbyist. I think at that time we were paying them $20,000. Something like $20,000 for the lobbyist effort at that time. This is like 2013 or thereabouts. And so we did away with the location, made some changes to who we were paying for the lobbyist, but paying a lobbyist $20,000. Then we reduced the amount we were paying the lobbyists and came up with where we are right now. So we did it entirely differently like 6 years ago. So I thought it'd be important for everybody to kind of understand where we were as you're considering where you want to go. I'm not saying what decision you should make.
We still have the office in Olympia.
Not the same one.
Okay.
No.
We have a presence down there.
No, it's significantly smaller than it used to be.
And Director Niels, I assume that our lobbying efforts all come from member fees and no other source, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I have Governor Swagel and then I have Governor Grabicki.
Well, I just want to point out something that's probably obvious, but just because we budget $25,000 or $50,000 doesn't mean we have to spend it. I know for a fact there are many line items that have been consistently year in and year out over budgeted, and then we end up having a surplus at the end of the year. So I think just, as a matter of being prudent, some number significantly larger than $5,000, maybe $25,000, maybe $50,000. I don't know what the right number is, but I'd be very comfortable with $50,000, knowing that we don't need to spend it if it turns out there's no active legislative campaign, nothing serious for us to respond to.
Governor Grabicki.
First, I want to echo something that Nancy said. One of my partners is the incoming head of our largest section, RPPT. And I'm the liaison to RPPT. I go to a number of their executive meetings. They have been royally hacked for at least the last year and a half at the lack of lobbying, not really lobbying, but the lack of information that they're getting with respect to bills that affect their very broad area, which is the same thing that Nancy was talking about. And it appears that over the past 6 years, we have cut back on our overall effort in terms of legislative coordination, and that our ability to inform sections of the existence of bills that affect their area has been somewhat compromised, perhaps not intentionally, but that we could do a better job. So I would like to restate my motion, if my second agrees, and restate my motion to approve $10,000 budget request for communications and a $50,000 allocation for lobbying and legislative outreach, with the proviso that whether or not it gets spent in total will be up to the president and the executive director and the president-elect who coordinates our legislative efforts. Would that be acceptable to my second?
It is.
I'll second it.
Well, there you go. 50.
Before I go to the vote on amending, Governor Higginson, do we need a vote on the amendment of the underlying motion? It was accepted, so we don't need it. I'm going to have two very relevant pieces of information. One, the head of our BOG Legislative Committee, and then our Director Nevitt give us additional information. Please.
I want to make pretty clear here that it sounds to me like this budget increase is not targeted at any one piece of legislation. It sounds like it's coming from other sections, other committees perhaps, other dissatisfaction. I think it is very important that, we don't focus too much on 1788 and trigger because of that. That was not my understanding of why we talked about a $5,000 increase, although it was part of it. It sounds to me like there's other factors involved. I'm going to need if this passes, I'm going to need your help in trying to figure out where that money would go, because that's not what we had talked about in the legislative Board of Governors meeting ever. We haven't convened. We haven't asked for an increase in budget. It came through the budget and audit. We wanted to be more responsive, and that's how we considered that. But it's not, I feel uncomfortable and maybe a little bit more comfortable devoting additional sums to other sections along with President Mujumdar and Executive Director Nevitt. But if I'm going to be a part of that decision making, I'm going to need help from others to figure out where and how we do that. Do we do that? Do we jump in the middle of the session and something pops up and we decide we need to fight this, so we'll throw $5,000? I don't know how that works. And maybe Governor McBride can help us with this too. Because this is new. This is a new proposal.
The complaint from the sections has been that proposed legislation gets introduced that very much affects their area, and they never know about it. And sometimes it gets enacted and has terrible repercussions because they never had an opportunity to sit down with the appropriate committees and say, hey, guys, this is the unintended consequence.
It's hard to judge that from anecdotal evidence, because we know that we do have a lobbyist who is doing that, is communicating, and that's why I would have liked Sanjay to talk a little bit about that.
I'll say something. I am going to, because we have a lobbyist who's been identified and is willing to speak, I'm going to ask a member of our board, Tom McBride, who spends a lot of his time in Olympia doing lobbying, for his input.
So I started as a full-time registered lobbyist in Olympia in 1993, and at that time the Bar Association was represented by John Fattorini, who was down there full-time and had a location about a block away from where my office was. A couple things just for you to consider. I think about 70% of the money that's spent on lobbying in the state of Washington for the state legislature is basically paying for, at best insider information, at worst gossip. It doesn't move the dial on a bill. It doesn't change any of the language in a proposal. And so you got to be careful when you do this. I don't think you're really effective in front of our state legislature until about your third full session. You have to have a consistent presence, and by that I mean a consistent individual who's there. The legislature is one gigantic trust exercise. 147 legislators. They'll look at 1,000 bills. At any point in time, with the bills that pass into law, 140 of them haven't read it. And they decide who they trust, whether it's another member, whether it's member caucus, whether it's an outside entity or not. So if we really do want to up our game, the commitment is longevity in your representation. And that can be a person here, but then you got to pay them enough that they'll stick around. Because if you pay them a little bit, about their third year when you'll start getting the benefit of their experience and their connections, they're going to go someplace that'll pay them twice as much. So you want to have a good in-house lobbyist, you can do that with one person can do the bar association's work. But you need to pay them a professional salary and keep them then in their interests. And during session, they need, quite frankly, an allotment so they can be down there physically. Commuting back and forth is a poor way to really do the legislature. So I think it's a great idea to have a bigger investment because I think the bar could have a better investment. I'm a big fan of in-house, but the commitment I think you're looking at is, and I think we could just grow it in-house internally here, but you need to commit to that salary. And if you want to do it on the cheap, sometimes you'll be successful, sometimes you won't. So I don't know if that helps you much. I mean, I would vote to allocate more money to it, but when it comes to the structure of doing it, if you don't get somebody who's going to stick with you for a while, you can get into all the right rooms, but nobody listens to you. The first time I talked to them, they were just like, I can't remember what that guy's name was, but he sure stayed a long time. So
Sure
it really
was
does
handsome.
take a while. Not.
Governor Higginson, I know you had a motion, and I went to get information for you. And I know that motion is pending because I hear you have about to come out of your mouth, and I'm going to recognize you so you can put the motion out on the table, assuming it's still there. But does anyone object to the chair making one small personal note on this matter? Thank you. My small personal note is I love the idea of the WSBA having a robust, consistent, multi-year, endless presence at the legislature. It best represents the public. It best represents the members, the lawyers, the people who deal with the resultant laws the legislatures pass. The public is best served by having that expertise represented down there. However, this is a direct and opposite conversation of the one we were just having 20 minutes ago. This costs money, costs member dues, and I think it's well-spent dues. But if you're going to commit to this, you also have to commit to the idea that these member dues are being spent well and you're setting them well, and that maybe reducing dues isn't going to help the WSBA provide for its members better necessarily. I just wanted to relay that comment. Governor Higginson, what is your motion? Very good. Very good.
Microphone, thank you. All right, so I'll just say that in support of the motion, we need a strong presence in Olympia. We've told the sections that they can't work independently at the legislature. They have to work through us, and yet we don't give them any support. Someone said, well, we don't have anything but anecdotal evidence that they're upset. Well, I think Governor Grubicki points out some information that we should take into consideration. I do know, because I'm a member of the Elder Law section, that the guardianship statutes were draconianly, to use a bad word, amended, and it was very upsetting. Terrible, terrible changes that need to be fixed. And I think that if we had an ability to let the Elder Law section know that this bill was introduced, they might have had a more opportunity to review it and maybe work through us and through our lobbyists to provide comments, but I don't think that happened. I was on the legislative committee last session, and I know that never came before us to comment on or to have us refer it back to the sections for comment. We are in a position where, when I was a young attorney, John Fattorini, who I remember was our longtime lobbyist, and he was absolutely excellent. And as I understand it, if the legislature had a question about something when they were in committee, what does the WSBA think? They knew who to find, and that person, Mr. Fattorini, would be able to answer it. Well, the bar thinks blah, blah, blah. The bar doesn't have a position on this. The bar does have a position on this. And he was able to also get information back to the sections, as I understand it, so the sections could activate quickly and provide their own comment, testimony at hearings and whatnot. We don't have that now, and I am not throwing stones at our in-house lobbyist at all. Sanjay is an excellent person and a fine addition to our staff. It's simply a matter that we have changed what we used to do, and as Governor McBride pointed out, we've changed it fairly dramatically, and I think, and Felix also pointed that out. So I'm supporting this motion and asking you all to consider voting for it, knowing that we'll try to find a lobbyist who can have a presence there all the time, but we owe it to our members, who have entrusted us, reluctantly perhaps, with keeping them informed of what's going on so that they can take positions. We owe it to them to have a presence so that we can do that, and right now we can't. And we owe it to the members as well to have someone down there who can really highly monitor what may or may not be happening with resurrecting 1788. So those are my comments.
Governor Cicchetti?
Can I make one more comment?
Make your comment.
Just so that everybody knows, we do have a lobbyist that's full-time in Olympia. Sanjay is full-time. He's been with us 3 years. Yeah, this is his third year. So we are developing those relationships. Can I call the question? Go.
I think he doesn't want you to.
I withdraw the call
I
to
think Governor
question.
Stevens also has more to say. And maybe Governor Bell.
Okay, well, really quick, I was the one who came up with the idea for the more money for this year based upon the budget. I will take responsibility if it's not enough. When we talked about it, we all said that was fine. At the audit meeting, $5,000 was enough. I certainly agree. We should have, if we can have a way that we can have more surplus. If so, then that I mean that makes sense. I just, for FY 2019, we did have more revenue than we thought we would. So there is funds, I mean for this. But I just want to say really fast, every time we do expend funds, that makes it, we're already in, we passed one for 19 for okay, for half a million in debt for the year. So if the goal is to not do that, the more we spend, then with that. So
Governor Stevens.
Yeah. So I would, I don't know at what point we're going to hear from Sanjay, but just by observation, I would like him to speak to it when we do hear from him. Unless he says, well, I don't need additional help, or I don't need someone else that can work with me. So, for example, I do hear, and there may be a division of opinion, but I do hear, and we're in this murky area regarding what the legislature is going to, we had 2 House committees taking a look at structures. And at least the minimum take away from that is somebody, and not just some backbencher, is looking at doing something regarding WSBA in general. Now, with that, we do know that various sections also want that kind of continuous support. Coming from a small section, there came the point that civil rights law section relies on some of its friends who are members from other organizations that have lobbyists to give us information that's civil rights related. But that's just so as we're not frustrated about what we get or don't get or whatever, because we have those relationships. But if you can use the help and you can figure out what to do with that, then fine. If that then allows you to be more focused, if son of 1788 or, structures in Stein comes into the legislature, that may take all the air out of one person's, or all the time out of one person's effort, while there's still all these other bills and all these other areas that the rest of our sections are going to be interested in having happen. So,
Governor Bell.
Thank you. Just a couple of brief comments. One, this is my first meeting, although I've observed a number of them. I will say that this, to me, looks and feels very reactive. I suspect this motion would not be made in the absence of the 1788 discussions over the course of the last year. So, with that in mind, I think that should inform us as we consider this question. The other piece is I think this goes to the question of what do we want our presence at Olympia to look like? Do we want a broader presence or do we want a more modest presence? A broader presence may solve some problems. It may also create some problems with our membership. And at least I have not heard a discussion or a debate. Maybe it's happened at the legislative committee level. Maybe it's happened within the BOG in previous years. Maybe I just have not heard it. But I have not heard a debate about whether we want our presence to be geared more toward lobbying, traditional lobbying, encouraging the legislature to take a vote this way or that way, or more in the context of technical assistance, providing crucial information as far as improvements to bills and furthering our member engagement and our member informational knowledge about the bills that are up front. I have not heard that discussion, again, whether we want traditional lobbying presence or whether we want more of a technical assistance, membership informational structure to our efforts. So for me, I have some concerns about this. I very much have concerns when I hear people saying, how about 50? How about 100? How about down to 0? Right? I'm not sure these are, for me, informed discussions. They appear reactive. I would oppose the measure. Thank you.
Governor Knight, and then as Governor Knight makes his comments or motion or whatever he enlightens us with, I might suggest, if the BOG isn't ready to vote on this, that it might be appropriately booted towards the end of today's calendar after we hear from the legislative committee. Governor Knight.
Budgets reflect an organization's priorities, and priorities can change over time. And good organizations are able to have nimble reactions when things change. Right now, it is clear that there is some threat to our self-governance. I think a change is necessary if we want to make preserving our self-governance a priority. Is this reactive? Of course it's reactive. That's the whole point. We need to be able to react to the sea change, and if there is a impending threat, let's address it. So would we have this vote if 1788 hadn't happened? No, but it did. So let's take the appropriate steps. I defer to the legislative committee and the executive committee on how exactly to go about the mechanics of it, but I do think $5,000 is too little. I think adding up the hourly rates of all the governors in the room today, we've already spent an opportunity cost of more than $5,000 on this very issue. So I don't know what $5,000 really buys us. If Governor Schicchetti has negotiated a contract for $5,000, terrific. I mean, you are a better negotiator than I am, and go for it. But I think to reflect our priorities, this board should allocate the necessary resources to preserve our self-governance.
Yeah, Governor King.
I agree a lot with what Russell had just said. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and something happened that could threaten the entity. And so for that reason, yes, we are being reactive, but we absolutely need to react to that. So I'm all in all support of this. However, I do understand the questions regarding logistics, what's the intent and what are we going to focus on, the costs, the history of it, all of that. So I'm really interested in hearing from Sanjay. But I am in full support of this. Thank you.
Governor Grabicki.
Let me speak to the intent of my motion. First of all, it was not intended as a criticism of Sanjay. I think he's doing a terrific job. I think the problem is that we aren't meeting the needs of our sections with respect to identifying legislation. We have further material that we're going to consider later in this meeting that's going to expand the role of the sections to be able to deal with the legislature as long as they adhere to GR 12. So that's one more reason why we need to equip them with the information. My intent in authorizing the $50,000 is that the three individuals at the head table will figure out how much of that they want to spend and how they want to spend it in order to achieve, at least in part, the needs of the sections as they become more active in the legislature. But whether they spend it and how much they spend, I leave up to them.
Thank you, Governor. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor of cutting off debate?
Aye.
All opposed? Fantastic. I really appreciated that discussion, actually, even though it seemed like I was frustrated because just as a chair, I'm always worried about the clock and us doing all the things that you all need to do. But that was a very, I think, meaningful and reasonable and good discussion of those issues. The question on the table now is the amendment by Governor Grabicki, which took the budget and audit recommendation to approve the $10,000 for the communications budget, approve that, and then modify the $5,000 budget request for lobbying to $50,000, releasable by a triad of the president, executive director, and president-elect. Is that correct?
A new gang of three.
A new gang of three. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Any abstentions? I have 2 abstentions. We'd like those recorded. Governor McBride and Governor Schicchetti. Thank you all so much. We're going to move quickly and keep going. Governor Clark.
Okay, so the next one's in our late stuff, and I will defer to ED about this one.
Surprise.
Okay. So, sorry, let me get to the right place. Oh, this is in your late material.
Late?
Okay. Yes, sorry. This is in your late materials. The Budget and Audit Committee met in October and discussed the travel policy, which is a part of the fiscal policy for governors and officers. A little bit of history on this. For the FY19 budget, there was a request to increase the amount of money available for governors and officers to attend national and regional conferences in order to allow for all of the board to attend the Western States Bar Conference. That was approved by the board as part of the budget. However, the fiscal policy, which is in conflict with that, was not revised. As you've heard me say many times before, when we passed the FY20 budget, we largely just carried everything over. We also carried over the increased amount of money for board members to travel to conferences. However, we still did not change the fiscal policy. So this conflict was raised, and the Budget and Audit Committee discussed it in October. They discussed it again in November and passed the fiscal policy language that you see in your late materials. This would allow, it was a compromise, and this would allow the president-elect, and treasurer to attend, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, 3 national conferences, thank you, Julie, and for the president and president-elect to attend the Northwest Bar Leaders meeting. In addition, it would allow the governors to attend 1 national or regional conference during their term of service. Which is a change, The previous language said that governors could attend one national or regional conference during their second year. And so this would clarify that it could just be once during their term of service. And this was approved by the Budget and Audit Committee at its meeting yesterday, which is why it's in your late materials.
Move we adopt. Second. That's fine, actually. Governor Knight, you seconding that, or
No.
do you have comment?
I do have a comment.
All right, there's a motion on the table, and Governor Knight has discussion.
I want to thank President Pickett for suggesting last year that any governor can attend Western states. I think it was a very valuable experience. I attended in my first year. I wouldn't have attended under the written proposal. I think the cost, because President Majumdar looks confused, but no, okay. I think the cost is approximately $20,000 if all of the governors went to a conference like Western States last year. I would hope it would be less if it's not in Hawaii. I think that really increased the cost. I think if governors choose, which one they go to during any term of the service, we kind of lose some of the benefit. The benefit, of course, is in part hearing from other bar associations. That's huge. But it is also building relationships with each other. And we don't do that unless we spend some time together. And I know that there's a dollar amount associated with this, but with a $21 million annual budget, $20,000 seems like a relatively de minimis amount. I would encourage a rule that allows any governor to attend any one conference, or perhaps any governor to attend Western states in any year. And I think that it helps our working relationships. It helps our governance. I think, and in doing that, I think it helps our members and the public. That's how we can serve them, by being able to work together. Also, I think that it's not the case that all governors are going to go every single year. So I don't think we're going to max out the absolute budget. I don't remember how many governors attended Western states, but 6, so less than half. I think just opening it up to allow everyone to attend really serves the aims of what we need to do.
This is how we're going to do this. I'm going to go back to my old system. After the executive director gives us a point of order, we'll go to Governor Cicchetti and then around the room.
Well, it's not really a point of order. I'm not taking a position on this, but I did want to let you know that in terms of our budgeting, when anyone attends a national conference, whether it's a governor or an employee, like when I attend a national conference, we budget on the low end about $2,000 per attendee. And oftentimes it's more than that, especially if it's Hawaii, then we budget more like $2,500. So if all 14 governors went, which I take your point, they probably wouldn't, on the low end, the cost would be about $28,000. On the high end, it would be about $35,000, just so you know what numbers you're talking about.
Governor Cicchetti.
In my view, this is somewhat of solving a problem that doesn't exist. We haven't had any exorbitant travel expenditures. It was opened up last year. Not everybody went. I think people are very judicious on time spent and money spent in their fiduciary duty with the Board of Governors and the membership and the fees in general. I agree with Governor Knight. I think the relationships that we need to build with not only bars across the state or across the country, but our neighbors to the east and our neighbors to the south, we need to repair some relationships there, and having more people, more governors willing to do that and volunteer their time to do that, I think is worth the money that is spent. And again, I don't think there's been no accusations that anybody has abused these budgets. I think this just puts on us restraints that we don't frankly need.
Past President Pickett.
Just a few comments. One, one of the intent for me when I proposed that all the governors be able to go to Western states any year, period, was one, because it's a time to actually build incredibly strong relationships with one another. It's a time away from the confines of the boardroom, and it's all. So that's the one aspect that I think is incredibly valuable. And if people haven't gone, I would encourage them to go. Period. The other thing is you meet at the Western States Bar Conference with other mandatory bars facing similar issues that we're facing, and there's an exchange of information there that doesn't happen anywhere else. It doesn't, and it depends on how active you are. I mean, you can go and not attend or sort of be halfway in, but if you're all in, and our organization has been sort of the leading oar on Western States for a long, long time. We actually just gave it to Oregon to facilitate. So, or actually that was the Northwest Bar Association. Anyway, this thing, so I still see the value. I think it should be opened up to any governor. In fact, I'll get shot for saying this, but I think it's something that staff, our key staffers, should be going to as well, to continue to build that relationship. I think it's a huge, wise investment in people, which is how this organization is driven. I know I've been accused of sort of creating the Hawaii boondoggle. At times, that's not the purpose, because the location isn't actually the purpose. If it's in Hawaii, great. If it's in Zimbabwe, so what? This one coming up is in Phoenix, I believe, and I don't actually think it's any cheaper. Actually, Phoenix is a pretty spendy place too. But you ask yourself, what are you investing in? Are you investing in a boondoggle, or are you actually investing in relationship with each other at a location that allows you to build teamwork, build relationship with each other, to better facilitate your work around this board table, and as an extra benefit, are you able to collaborate with other mandatory bars facing the same incredible challenges that you're facing? So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's yes, 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 you can go. So sorry for the long-winded response.
Thank you. Governor McBride. Governor Angeville. Governor Stevens.
So I just have a couple of questions. One is kind of technical. So we had a policy, and last year the president said, well, I have this vision that I'd like you to do. And so my question is, if that happened again, I look at that as a variance for that time. So I trust that's the way that would be done. And I also look at this and I say, well, so is it now after the fact that that anyone who went can't go anyplace else now? You didn't know in the future, but now we're passing a policy, and what does that mean for anyone who attended Western States? Would they not be able to attend Western States again? And I just ask this because if you pass this, then I just want to know how it's applied.
Well, just to let you know how I would be interpreting and executing those orders. My interpretation is that funding was a line item specific for that funding. It wouldn't affect any other travel governors are eligible to travel for under the travel policy.
Okay. But the other thing, and some of the topics that certainly came up and was enlightening to me was to hear that we weren't the only ones dealing with Keller and Janus and what's political and what's not political, and getting a real sense of how that was being dealt with by other states. I mean, that was both enlightening and gave me pause to even consider, okay, this is a bigger issue than just us, and this is kind of happening elsewhere. And I even had to wonder, okay, there's when we talk about politics, well, there's a political underpinning as a national movement to stop bars from taking certain actions on behalf of and advance of their members. So it was beneficial to get that sense. It was beneficial. I think at that time, President-elect Majumdar was quite encouraged when he heard me talk about being an association guy.
Very, very excited, just for the record.
But I've always been, but when it comes to, so for example, when I hear status quo, I'm not sure status quo means it's a bad thing. You know? There are reasons why we are as we are, and I stand strong to defend that and continue that, because I think that's for the health of our association. But I get that not only from where I come personally and just what I know about Washington State, but also hearing from my colleagues or our colleagues in the western states as well. And I do think there is a benefit and a value for us coming together and actually getting to know each other when we're not coming in for a few days and then sprinting off. So, there.
Governor King, Governor Tollefson, Governor Gerbicki, Governor Abell, Governor Peterson.
Just to clarify, what exactly am I saying yes or no to?
We're just commenting.
Oh, no comment.
Very good. Governor Higginson.
I'm a little confused myself. I just want to be sure that I understand that the motion on the table was that each governor can attend one conference per year?
So just to clarify, the old travel policy that existed said each governor during their term of service could go to one national regional conference, but only during their second year. The revised policy says you could go whenever you want during your service. However, the discussion that's evolving around the table is that the policy we enacted last year, the one-time policy we enacted last year of going to the western states, has a lot of value, is very productive, and doesn't cost very much. That discussion was started by Governor Russell and has continued around the table. On a personal comment, I felt my relations were strengthened with everyone who was there, but that's where the conversation has gotten us to.
So the motion on the table was just that any governor could go once during your term, but
which is not actually defined as term. So if you started half a term and then had another full term.
I couldn't find it. That's why.
Like a couple
Yeah.
governors.
I'm sorry. I guess I thought I was looking in the late materials. I didn't realize it was in the
late.
late.
This was late.
Late materials. Okay.
Budget and Audit Committee considered it yesterday as a problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Governor Swagel.
Yeah, so I'm the one who started this whole row. This was, out of my concern that, yes, I did think that the push to get there was a huge push to get every governor around this table in Hawaii last year. And I was like, oh, jeez, we're all going to be in Hawaii. Is this intended to bring down the bar so everyone can see, everyone around this table in Hawaii and go, well, now that's a good reason for getting rid of the bar. I like the proposal. I understand everyone's views about, networking and sharing information and ideas with other mandatory bar leaders. But I also am a bit of a budget hawk, and I want to see dues go down, and I don't want to see pictures of everyone around this table in Hawaii. That's my 2 cents.
Will Boise work?
Boise is less incriminating for some reason.
Our president stepped away. But I bet he would ask you if you had a comment.
He'd ask Governor Russell if he has a comment, yes.
Yes.
No, I have a Rajiv.
Yes. Governor Knight.
Are we only on comments, or would it be appropriate
we've just
to
finished. We are still on comments, actually, but after Governor Clark gives his comment, because I think I started you early.
I already had my chance, so I won't go again. But when would it be an appropriate time to propose an amendment?
Right after Governor Clark speaks.
Thank you.
Okay, so my own take on this is I agreed that it was good to go last year. I see this as a policy that would upgrade the one we have, and I think we can address the concerns of those that would want to go more so than what we may adopt. If we pass this, there's nothing stopping the head from asking for an exception for the year. And that would limit us, though, for years when we're lean, that we have one that's more that way then. So yeah, thank you.
Now,
I move to amend the motion to reflect a policy that reads: governors may attend one national or regional conference per bar year.
okay, there's a motion, and there's a second on the motion. I would ask for any discussion on this, but I feel like we've been discussing it. I hope no one's uncomfortable. Well, wait. That's an amendment, correct? So where is the original maker of the motion?
Who is PJ?
Right there. Governor Grabicki. And who's your seconder? Governor Tollefson. Where do you take that amendment as friendly?
I do not.
Okay. Well then I'm gonna call the question on the amendment then myself, just sua sponte, okay? All in favor of the amendment, and I think I'm gonna have to do a hand raising to count probably here. So all in favor of amending the policy to add the language that it's each year a governor may travel to a national or regional conference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I count 6 votes. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion fails 6-7. Are there any other potential amendments out there?
Call the question.
I hear a motion to call the question. Without a second.
Second.
There we go. Okay, we will now. Oh heavens! This is a vote on whether to have the vote or not. All in favor of having the vote?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Fantastic. Just for the record, I'm sorry, Governor Hunter did have to leave. She wasn't feeling well. This is now the underlying question, which is the travel policy as proposed by the Budget and Audit Committee and presented by the Treasurer and the Executive Director. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna have to do a hand. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do a hand vote. All in favor, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, 9? I counted 8. Oh, he dropped his hand. I still count 8. 8 votes in favor. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 against. Any abstentions? Kim's not here. That still only gets me to 12. Someone has not voted. Well, but there's more than 13 governors, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to do a roll call vote now. So here I go. Governor Abell.
Aye.
Governor
Trying to remember the motion.
Peterson.
Yes.
Governor Higginson.
No.
Governor Swigel.
Yes.
Governor Knight.
No.
Governor Clark.
Yes.
Governor Schiketti.
No.
Governor McBride.
Yes.
Governor Angevel.
Yes.
Governor Stevens.
No.
Governor King.
Yes.
Governor Tollefson.
Aye.
Governor Grabicki.
Yes.
Now, I hope we have 13 votes now.
9 in favor.
Yeah.
4 opposed.
That's
and 1 not
13.
present.
Fantastic. Great work. The motion passes. We then move on. Thank you again for that civil debate.
So, did we decide though, we just passed this policy, would that bar those who went last year from not going? So we're going to start it now, a new policy?
Oh, you mean people who are under the old policy who use a national trip that was not Western State Conference?
No, so last year was an exception where we could
Yeah,
all
an
go.
exception.
Yeah. But it was funded separately, right?
It was
And that
funded
was an
separately.
exception.
That's fine.
So can people go this year?
Yes.
As the first one? So-
Yeah, I think that's a fine interpretation, frankly.